Hey guys, going to be talking to you today about my UI. I've been getting a lot of questions on it. So if you're one of those people who had some, great. If you're one of those people who've seen my UI and are like, wow, your UI is dumb, well, I think you're dumb, and this video is obviously not for you. First things first, I use LVUI and it covers my chat frame, my bars, my player frame, my boss frames, my map, all that good stuff. I know a lot of people are like, oh, LVUI, it all looks the same, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I actually used to do a lot of more custom UIs, but the problem with that is that your UI looks great, and then patch day comes and your UI gets fucked because nothing is updated. So the reason I really like LVUI is it's just so well maintained, it's pretty customizable, and you just tend to not have all those issues when an XPack drops or a patch drops because they're always on top of it. So that's pretty much the main reason I like to use LVUI. If you're against it, you can get pretty cool looks from using KG panels and some self-designed images and just play stuff like that. Dominoes or bartender you can use for your bars. There's just a lot of options in that realm if you don't want to go the LVUI route. In terms of general layout, on the left-hand side I have my chat frame, which is currently covered, and those buttons are going to be my keyboard buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of stuff. And then on the right-hand side, I use a Razer Naga mouse, so those are going to be my mouse keybinds. Also, on the left-hand side, I have a mouse over bar frame, which is crafting, mounts, that type of stuff. On the right-hand side, I have another mouse over frame, which is going to be like raid stuff like pull timers, foods, flask, that kind of stuff, Hearthstone. And you'll see I use Skada, along with that map is just the built-in LVUI map, and those little icons on the right hand side are their buff trackers. I also have data text enabled. I use shadow and light. I don't know that I use it for anything else. I think I had initially used it for some other capabilities in LVUI, but I think currently I just use it to get the data text I want. So I could probably slim that down and not use it, but I use shadow and light. And then I also use another add-on called Codename Blaze for LVUI, and basically that allows me to make boss frames horizontal versus the default vertical. I have a lot of different profiles set up for different bosses, so for certain boss fights where there are 3 bosses, like Iron Maidens is one of them, I can have those 3 bosses vertical across my screen, keeping stuff a little bit more symmetrical, versus just, you know, huge long line of bosses coming from the top of the screen down, like over off to the side or something. In general though, my raid frame layout is going to be my player target frame, a focus frame, and a target frame for single boss fights. I think that's all I'm going to mention for the LVUI side of things. I feel like it's pretty customizable and you can do a lot of different things with it, and it's fairly self-explanatory, but if you're having any questions or you're trying to replicate a look that I have, just let me know in the comments below and I will get back to you on that. The next big add-on I use is my raid frames, my healing bars. Those are going to be done by Vuhdo. I've tried a lot of different ones and they're all fine. The reason I really like Vuhdo is their customizable debuffs. I think it just makes it a lot easier to track what you want to track. On a fight, I can just enter a debuff, and then you'll see I do this on a lot of my videos. I'll have a custom color bar change for a specific ability if it goes out on someone, so that I'm not looking for a tiny icon, I just have a big color change and it lets me address something a lot quicker. In terms of my Vuhdo layout, I prefer typically to do the background as class colors and the text of the player as a white text. I also like to have my raid frames kind of aligned with the bottom of my player and like focus frames. So I'll have different sizes for 20 man versus 25, 30, that kind of stuff. And I would suggest not doing the activate due to group size, because if your guild's like mine, you'll be doing a 20-man raid, but you'll have like 5 extra people in the raid frame sitting on the bench, like just in the group, and that'll throw off frames. So just if you don't have that issue, feel free to do adjust by size on it, but if you do have extra people sitting in, it will automatically adjust even if they're not actually in the raid with you. In terms of what I track on my Vuhdo, at baseline, it's going to be Power Word Shield and the Weakened Soul debuff, Prayer of Mending, Pain Suppression, Power Word Barrier, Divine Aegis procs, and Clarity of Will if I'm running that talent. And those are all done with the hot panel icons. So you just basically type in the ability you want to track, and it will show you on the bars. In terms of spell casting, you do have options to enter spells you want, so you can make use of your left and right click, your shift click, your alt, your control click, like that kind of stuff. So I have some of those, and then I also have just spells and abilities key bound to my Naga mouse. So there is a mixture of that. So again, Vuhdo, super customizable. Lots of different options and fairly straightforward in interface, but if you have questions on how to set any of this up, let me know. As I said before, I use Skada for tracking healing numbers and DPS numbers. The reason I chose that over something like Recount is because you can have multiple instances of it, so I can have a separate healing frame and a separate DPS frame, which makes it a lot easier for me to see what I want to see. And then it doesn't really require too much setup. The only thing I did was add a skin to the bars. So that's all that is right there. For boss timers, I'll typically use DBM. BigWigs I'll use occasionally. It just kind of depends on the fight. I think DBM's great, and they've recently introduced sort of like an ability glyph tracker. You can see it on something like Iron Maidens. If someone gets rapid fire, there'll be like a yellow glyph on your screen of where that rapid fire is going. Or something like on Beast Lord, when you have the fire breath coming out, it'll show you where that's going out with a big red glyph on your screen. So that can be very useful to certain people. In terms of my layout for DBM, I keep it pretty simple. I just have baseline timers going above my player frame, and then at 5 seconds they swap over to my focus frame or my target frame, depending on which profile I'm using. And that way I know once I see them move over, it's time for them to almost start coming out. Since I'm typically the person calling raid cooldowns for my group, I do run a raid cooldown tracker. I use Hermes as the add-on, and then I use the grid buttons layout, and it's these icons that you see at the bottom of my screen below where my raid frames would be. Basically, I can hover over each icon. It'll tell me who has it, if it's on cooldown, and then if it's available, it's in full color with a little number by it, or if it's on cooldown from everyone, it'll be in black and white with sort of a timer circling around it for when it's next available. Lastly, and which you're probably all most interested in, is my cooldown trackers, and for that I use WeakAuras. I basically have my WeakAuras for disc set up into 2 different groups, shorter cooldowns and longer cooldowns. For my longer cooldowns, I use the dynamic bar, so this will be for stuff like Paint Sup or Barrier. When I hit the ability, it will be moved to the end of the bar, turn black and white, and will have a timer set up on it that will count down until it is back up, at which point it will move back to its spot on the bar and be in color. For my shorter cooldowns, I track Penance, Prayer of Mending, the Tier 6 talents, and Holy Fire or Power Word Solace. They are set up to change dynamically, so if you change from, say, Cascade to Halo, it will automatically start tracking Halo instead of Cascade. Same for Holy Fire versus Power Word Solace. On the right hand side, it will track either Shadow Fiend or Mindbender depending on which you take. And on the left, it will take care of Power Infusion, Twist of Fate, and Spirit Shell. For Power Infusion, it'll just tell you if it's available. It'll be in full color, no numbers. If it's currently up, it'll be counting down and turning black and white. And then if it's down, it'll be black and white with a countdown till it's available again. And although they haven't really been used a lot, this tier, it does still track Spirit Shell and Twist of Fate. For Twist of Fate, whenever you get the buff, it will pop up and will have a timer of how long that buff is up for. And then for Spirit Shell, it will show availability. When you hit Spirit Shell, it will show a countdown of how long you have to put Spirit Shell out, and then it will go black and white and on cooldown with a countdown until the ability is available again. The other big part of this particular WeakAura group is the evangelism stacks monitoring. If you've been playing Disc at all this X pack, you know that we're pretty much using Archangel on cooldown, so being able to see how many stacks of evangelism I had was super important to me. Each one of these purple bars is a stack of evangelism, and when you hit Archangel, it'll reset them, and then you'll get a bar with the countdown of how long Archangel is going to be up for. I also have a small WeakAura for showing when Bloodlust is up, and then 2 other WeakAuras that show if I'm missing my food buff, which is shown as a little donut, or if I'm missing my flask, which is shown as a little cup. And those only show if I'm in a raid zone and out of combat. If at this point you're like, oh shit, I need those WeakAuras in my life, or something less dramatic, they are below the video in that info panel. So basically just click on the Pastebin links and import that code into WeakAuras and you will have them. And that is all for this video. I hope you guys got some use out of it. Again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll get back to you when I can. And have fun raiding!